What you are about to hear will blow your mind and give you six-pack abs without even exercising.
Pull up a bar stool and relax.
Hey, who wants to have some fun?
You've made it to Happy Hour with John Gaskins.
Oh, no. Not again.
Get ready for entertaining local and regional sports talk that will change your life. Or not.
And by the way, when you're telling these little stories, here's a good idea. Have a point. It makes it so much more interesting for the listener.
Here's your host, John Gaskins.
Here's Johnny. Hello! Ah! I'm back, baby! I'm back!
Hey! Happy Hour on a Wednesday. Huge local sports news and Vikings news today. Shannon PIvovar, hired as USD softball coach, elevated from associate head coach 2 weeks after her huge viral moment. Tons of buzz for USD softball. Then her boss, Robert Wagner, got fired. I think in all cases, the Wagner firing, the PIvovar hiring, I think Jon Schemmel nailed it. A lot of USD fans didn't like some of that. I'll tell you why. It all checks out in a moment. Plus, the Minnesota Vikings' new GM was introduced today, and I don't know if Noah Teasley is the right guy. He's never been an NFL GM before, but he came from the Super Bowl winner, and it's pretty obvious what his first order of business and what his tenure will be marked by, what that is. And I'll get to that. And Patrick Lalley, our publisher, our editor, our knight in shining armor for Sioux Falls Live, used to run the Argus. Election nights or Super Bowls, we had a big one last night in South Dakota, and we're going to go lallygagging. We don't do it often, but we're diving into the news. What he makes of Doeden and Rhoden running off for the governor race, the two mayoral candidates that will run off, and more. We'll head to Orion Pub and talk to Patrick Lalley. But let's start with the Shannon PIvovar thing. I think this is going to end up being not only the right hire, it's a popular hire, but man, just name the sport. I mean, if this were college football, what just happened, imagine whether it's local, national, FCS, Big Ten. Head coach takes a program to where it's never gone before. Let's just say it's Matt Rhule. He takes Nebraska to the college football playoff. I know, that's funny, right? It's a far out hypothetical, but just follow me. Matt Rhule takes Nebraska. He's had trouble at Nebraska. He's taken them to the college football playoff. They won the Big Ten and they're in the college football playoff, and then they win a game there. And then he gets fired. And then they hire Dana Holgorsen, his offensive coordinator. That'd be pretty wild. That'd be like, what is going on here? And that's basically what happened with USD softball. So we got to run it back to get to where we are with Piv being the new head coach. 2 weeks ago, Robert Wagner fired, or in other better terms, his contract not renewed. 2 days after he led the Yotes to the program's greatest achievement ever. Not just its first Summit League tournament title and its first NCAA tournament berth in the history of the program. Half a century, Division I and Division II. Never been there. And then the Yotes put a scare in the number one ranked team in the country on their home field in Lincoln. Best team Huskers have ever had. USD's leading midway through the game, lost 4-1. And then the next day they beat Louisville out of the ACC for the first ever USD tourney win. And then even better, they lose. They get eliminated in extra innings, but they get into extra innings off the hit of one of their least used players, 2-run single. And that is when USD softball goes viral because Shannon PIvovar, the associate head coach, is telling the batter, Katie Hoffman, 5th hit all season long, okay, over 55 games. I'm so proud of you. That's the moment, right? So much goodwill harnessed for what had been kind of a dormant, nothing, no man's land softball program until the last couple of years. And really, this year until the last couple of weeks of the season. They just got hot. They won at 10 of 15. They started 10 and 29. They weren't much. And then here they are. they just explode. And then you fire the coach? You thwart the momentum? That's odd. And I was not quick to judge. Certainly crazy timing. But man, did I read from so many USD fans, social media, and then I was in touch with some of them. I think I got a decent sample of the fan base that cared about softball and what happened here. And of course, you know what a lot of the reaction was. Why would you do this? What awful timing. Why can't we have nice things? How embarrassing. Jon Schemmel is hurting the brand. He's getting in his own way. He forced out Bob Nielsen into retirement. He hired a guy that was there for 1 year. He just wants to hire his own people so he can impress who's ever hiring him next. And then he starts blocking people on Twitter who are defending Robert Wagner. Yeah, so a lot of that is true from the fan base. Sample, not everybody. But in these situations, it's such an incredibly just heavy and fast and furious circumstances, the success, the viral moment, then the firing. It's a lot to process. Maybe give it a couple days to process. So I tried to connect dots. And look, Schemmel ate a lot of crap for this. He bit a lot of bullets. But 2 weeks later, he hires the coach. I think whether you agreed with the Wagner firing or not, he hired the coach I think most wanted him to hire to keep the momentum of this program going. It's never been more successful. It's never had a better moment. And Shannon PIvovar joined our show to talk about that viral moment not too long ago. She said this helped the Yotes recruiting. People that would never have reached out to USD about playing softball there, well, now they've seen them on the national stage, more so on social media than ESPN or ESPN Plus or whatever network they were on. The millions of views of Shannon PIvovar being the pillar of positivity in coaching in a day and age when there's so much NIL, there's so much angst, there's so much me from players. And you see this, and that's what it's all about, right? And so it kind of feels like you got to hire the one that had the momentum to keep the program, keep the players, keep the recruits going. Don't take down something that just started to become a good thing. And I agree with all that. That is the right hire. But back to why the position was open in the first place. I was able to grasp from trusted sources that a lot of players were happy with Wagner's dismissal. So perhaps something was percolating underneath before all the big Summit League tournament and NCAA regional success was happening. And I'll just put it in general terms that I think I feel safe saying, without dispute, there might have been a culture problem in USD softball. And mostly the culture between the head coach and a lot of the players. Okay? It wasn't a Shannon PIvovar culture problem. So, I mean, if it was an entire culture problem, then you wouldn't hire somebody who was already on staff to take over. And, well, yeah. Also, Robert Wagner, to that point, had an underwhelming record. Things didn't start elevating in the program until Shannon PIvovar came on board. They were 70 games under 500 in the Wagner era. And this was, hey, David Herbster and Jon Schemmel gave him some patience. Good for them. Everyone understands it's hard to win in the Summit League in baseball and softball because we're way up here in the Dakotas and the weather's terrible and that affects recruiting. And you play your first 30 games on the road. We hardly play any home games. We get it. You get a lot of grace with your record. SDSU baseball did that with Rob Bishop, paid off in his 10th year, finally. They finally won the Summit League. But the program was not ripping it up. It got hot with a hot pitcher. Softball is pitcher-oriented in Madison Evans. And then we also saw what was best about the programs besides Evans in that Katie Hoffman hit. Shannon PIvovar was elevated to associate head coach after her first season. She was an assistant for 3 years. Associate head coach. Robert Wagner saw something in her. She had been fired as USF's head coach 3 years ago, and Wagner said, we need you in softball. I know about you. I know your reputation. I know your ability to connect with players. We need you. And so here is Shannon PIvovar, and this is likely the biggest reason why she's been hired as USD's softball coach. This is from Happy Hour after her big viral moment. 2 weeks ago, May 18th.
I want to know their stories off the field. I want to know how they're doing in classes. I want to know what they're looking forward to in their futures and their goals and all of that stuff. And at the end of the day, that's why I coach. 1,000% is because I believe that building people up and building those relationships and doing that is going to outweigh the wins and losses at the end of the day. Do I want to win? Yes. Am I super competitive? Absolutely. But going to weddings of players that I coached 10 years ago, getting text messages that they are pregnant and expecting, that stuff to me is so much more fulfilling than remembering a win 10 years ago.
You grasp it pretty good there. She said early in her career, when she was an assistant at SDSU, when she was the head coach at USF, she's young. She's far more concerned about wins and losses, and the relationship aspect about it much more important. And that is a sign of maturity and growth. She's grown a lot. She's grown a lot since she was USF's head coach and when she was the Jackrabbits assistant coach. By the way, Shannon PIvovar was a part of the staff and had only been on the staff briefly, a couple of years, for both the Jackrabbits and the Yotes, both programs who had been middling forever and in Division I had really struggled. And common denominator, Jacks and Yotes, first ever Summit League title and NCAA berth. Shannon PIvovar on the staff. Not a coincidence. So she's grown, she's matured, she's a relationship builder, a culture builder. It appeared that anything that was good in that culture was Shannon PIvovar, and that you don't get hired because of a viral moment. That's not what anybody said. You shouldn't hire Shannon PIvovar because she got really famous for something really positive. That shouldn't be enough. But she's clearly qualified with the success and the experience she had at SDSU and at USF as a head coach, at USD. She's been here for 12 years in this region, Southeast South Dakota. So she's had success as an assistant. She has put in time as a head coach, and she knows the recruiting ways of the place. But good things happen to good people sometimes, and it's a culmination of their work, not just some sort of fluke from the universe. And so here is Piv talking about the thing she was most famous for, that viral moment.
I think what's crazy is I wasn't doing anything that I don't normally do. I'm not used to the TV cameras. I'm not used to that. Like, we're lucky that our games get streamed on the Summit League network when we play. But like the ESPN level, that was new to all of us too. So I simply was just through the roof ecstatic for Katie in that moment. And I knew all of the emotions that she had too, but like, darn it, I was so darn proud of her that she stepped up and figured out a way to tie that game.
So there you go. Jon Schemmel knew all this before Shannon PIvovar's big moment. He keeps a close eye, a close watch on all his athletic programs, as is his job. So just a wild guess, I don't know this for sure, but connecting the dots, it's that he wasn't sure in the first place as a new athletic director if it should continue under Robert Wagner. Good softball man, lots of knowledge, part of 8 College World Series teams and 2 national titles as an associate head coach at Arizona State. But was it really clicking at USD? You get a long leash, but there appeared to be players not happy. You shouldn't fire a coach because players are unhappy. To what extent or why they were unhappy, what kind of grounds this was to not renew his contract, I don't know. But he assessed the situation. There weren't a lot of players that spoke out about Wagner being fired. Good sources tell me they were happy to see him go. And it appears there's a lot more support for Piv's hiring than there was anger for Wagner's firing. It all adds up. Now, I have seen some USD fans not happy with this hire because it seems lazy, because it's from in-staff. It's a lazy hire. Or you might go ahead and bang her 4 years of head coaching experience. She was 4 games under 500. Yeah, that was at USF, which, just like SDSU and USD, doesn't win a lot of games. They're not going to bowl you over with 40 and 50 win seasons playing up in the North, for playing and recruiting in the North. And USF, they're playing and practicing at Sherman Park, a Sioux Falls public complex. I did their PA for many games. And now they're out at Sanford, which is a much nicer facility. They don't have their own softball practice and playing facilities. 2 blocks down, you have Augustana, who's won a national championship and about 14 times over regular season and Northern Sun tournaments and trips to the NCAA tournament. 2 blocks down, they've got their own field. It's first class. You know, Greta Melstad, she just got the Minnesota job. Like, USF is a tough softball job, probably tougher in the Northern Sun than USD is in the Summit League. And she was 500. That's a lot of wins for USF. She coached over her skis as a 20-something first-time coach. And she probably learned some lessons along the way. And then Robert Wagner felt like he had to hire her. She creates a culture. She was heavily involved. She was in charge of player development, recruiting coordinator. And as she said in our chat with us, Robert Wagner empowered her, putting the associate head coach label, to do a lot of blue collar, down and dirty, grimy, nose to the grindstone work of the program. And what did that amount to? Eventually, back-to-back Summit League tournament championship round appearances, the big breakthrough win, and then an NCAA tournament win, and then the moment we all saw. And yes, you don't hire her because of a moment. But what that moment did, which was, again, a culmination of Shannon PIvovar's coaching and who she is as a coach, that has helped elevate the culture and the success of USD. Here's what that did for recruiting in 48 hours time, millions of views.
I think this is a piece, and it's a big piece of this story, but we're having kids reach out and say, I saw you on TV, I want to be part of it. And that hasn't been a thing before. Wow. So I do think that the social media stuff that's getting out there, the ability for us to play in a regional on that stage and get the coverage that we did is going to go a really far way in terms of just getting the University of South Dakota softball's name out there. So I think that's kind of the biggest step in terms of the program.
So there you go. I hope now it all makes sense to you. It's not a lazy hire. It's the right hire. They had something good going. You hold on. You keep what was the best of it, and you subtract what was the worst. And again, it sounds like Robert Wagner was a really nice guy, a really knowledgeable softball man, did the best he could, invested himself in the Vermilion community. I don't know exactly why his contract wasn't renewed, but yeah, I think I've just added it all up for you in the last 15 minutes. It all appears to be the right decision from what I've learned and from what we know about Shannon PIvovar. Going on to the Minnesota Vikings. Quite a week and quite a last 24 hours in Vikings land. For one, Jason LaCanfora, NFL insider, longtime CBS, now with a different company. He claims J.J. McCarthy wants a trade. He wants out. He's not the golden boy anymore. He was getting all the reps, all the attention, and got hurt. And he thought he wants out of Minnesota now that they've brought in Kyler Murray. Okay, you have that going on. Of course, the Kyler Murray signing a month ago was a big bombshell. And then the Vikings went out and they hired a new GM. And his name is Noah Teasley, and he was introduced to the Minnesota Vikings media today. Right-hand man to the owners. Right-hand man to one of the best GMs in the NFL, John Schneider. Seahawks won 3 Super Bowls, made 3 Super Bowls, won 2 of them. And they won those 2 12 years apart. 12 years apart. And, they went from Russell Wilson. They had to turn things over, and they eventually land on Sam Darnold, coincidentally from the Vikings. And, you had the Pete Carroll, Legion of Boom, all that. Seahawks, one of the most respected organizations in the NFL, and he was the right-hand man. Okay, that's good. And so he was introduced to the Vikings media today, and look, he was polished, he was vague, he was generic, he was all business. He didn't get into specifics about McCarthy and Kyler Murray. very buttoned up press conference. I saved you a lot of time by watching the whole 24 minutes. But two things stuck out to me from his remarks and through Mark Wilf, the managing owner's remarks today. One, Kevin O'Connell clearly has a huge say in personnel. Is he actually the GM? No, they said Nolan will get the final say on personnel. Noah Teasley, right? But Kevin O'Connell, for the first time, and unlike the last time with the hiring of Kwesi, he was a part of the process of hiring the GM. And he's going to have big input in the personnel decisions with Teasley. Twice, Teasley said it would be his job to make his draft, the free agency decisions, and who hits the field, who starts, particularly at quarterback, based off the coach's vision for the players. Coach's vision for the players. He's going to work with the coaches. And it's not just KOC. It's Brian Flores, who's basically the head coach of the defense and would be a head coach in the NFL if he wasn't suing the NFL. He's one of the best. So Teasley wouldn't address J.J. McCarthy and Kyler Murray specifically, nor would he, when asked, talk about specific situations in evaluating the quarterback spot when he was in Seattle. But he did say this regarding the quarterback role with the Minnesota Vikings.
As I was raised in this league, the quarterback and the head coach are the two most important people in the building. And so we're going to build our operation and our foundation around supporting them so that they can be the best versions of themselves at all times. In terms of managing, that we're going to rely on the coaching staff. But, I think the goal from the outset of the offseason was to build a deep and competitive quarterback room, and I think that was executed.
Is Captain Obvious? Sure. We all know quarterback and head coach are the two most important people in the building. But it's vitally important for a GM to realize that this is his first task. If that's it, he knows you got to nail this. You got to get this right. And that's the best thing we know so far about Nolan Tinsley. First job, figure out the quarterback. So let's do that. And look, let's go. Let's call the Minnesota Vikings what they are. They're a pretty darn good, well-built automobile. They've got a sleek design. They're sturdy and they're safe. They've been crash tested and it's safe. Plenty of horsepower, the wide receivers. Hardly any dents in that thing. All the little things are there. You got a decent fuel system, a top 5 defense. You got a decent transmission that gets the wheels going. That's the offensive line. Your ECU, your head coach, your head coaches, elite staff. No one doubts all that. It's just one problem with this mighty fine automobile, one of the best in the NFL. The engine doesn't work too well. Car can't get out of the garage. The quarterback is the engine. And when you consider that you have a 5th-year head coach with a great record, but no playoff wins, you have a top 5 defense. That's what they were actually ranked in the top 5, almost everything, rankings, PFF, you name it, and maybe the best defensive coordinator in football in Brian Flores. You're in one of the deepest divisions in the NFL, one of the most competitive. You're in the more competitive conference. Rams just added Myles Garrett. Seahawks won the Super Bowl. 49ers always there. You have the best wide receiver in the NFL, one of the best wide receiver duos, and with the latest draft pick at receiver, one of the best trios right out of the gates. You have to win now. This is not, you need a veteran, proven quarterback, and that's not J.J. McCarthy. You can't do the pet project. You tried to work on the pet project. He got hurt a lot. That didn't help him, but we all saw it. J.J. McCarthy was the 29th ranked quarterback in the NFL by PFF. We saw the stumbling and bumbling, the 5 wins in a row to end the season. We all know that was against papier-mâché defenses. It didn't really develop him. And this is not the Jets. These are not the Panthers with Sam Darnold. This is not wait and see. You got 5th-year head coach, great defense, great receivers. Offensive line needs work, but it's not one of the worst. It's middle of the pack. You can't screw up the quarterback, and Kyler Murray's a far better option, and I think we all know that. And by the way, the Seahawks, I know Vikings fans want to lament, Woe is us. We always have the bridge quarterback. We always have the quarterback on his second or third stop who has a history of injuries, and that's what Kyler Murray is. And oh, by the way, he might be a rent-a quarterback. He's only on the hook for 1 year. Why can't we ever get it right in the draft? Why can't we ever develop? Why are we always stopping us? It doesn't matter. Everything is there for the Vikings to win big, but they need all they can have, especially the most important position, quarterback, just to make the playoffs when you're in a division with the Packers and the Bears and the Lions and a conference with the Rams, Seahawks, and Niners. And the Seahawks won the toughest division in the NFL last year with the Rams and Niners right there, and Kyler Murray on the worst team with Sam Darnold as the quarterback. Well, what's Sam Darnold? He's a late 20s quarterback with a history of struggling and being a journeyman quarterback in the NFL who played on mediocre to bad teams, whose coaches and offensive system and offensive line often failed him. Gee, that sounds like Kyler Murray, and now the right-hand man of the GM of the team that just won the Super Bowl brought Kyler Murray into the Minnesota Vikings. It just might work. But it feels like if the Cantor reports are true that McCarthy wants a trade, okay, now he's entitled. He hasn't performed well enough. You make the trade? No, you need depth. That was clear from last year. McCarthy got hurt. Wentz got hurt. You're going to need those guys in the room. But Kyler Murray is your guy, and all eyes are on, number one, how Noah Teasley hires the quarterback situation this year and moving forward. It either gets the Vikings finally to a Super Bowl or gets him and Kevin O'Connell fired within 2 or 3 years.
It's still happy hour with John Gaskins. This round's on me.
Doeden and Rhoden on the road to Pier. It's down to brass tacks time. We are live at the heart of the best little city in America and the best little pub in town, the Orion Pub. We're going Lallygagging. John Gaskins with Patrick Lalley, governor, mayor, senator, congressman. Let's do it. We're breaking a rule of the best little dive neighborhood pub.
Oh, yeah, no
town.
politics.
No politics. So maybe we have to talk very
quietly. Or you got to keep it quiet. I see a lot of political people in here, which is this actually is kind of a secret political bar. Like, it's a political bar where you can't talk about politics, but political people come here all the time.
Yes, they do.
Which is very interesting.
It is. And but part of the whole concept was this is a good old-fashioned 70s vintage bar. Nate's playing the old-school country tunes right now. And we're looking up at boots and a wagon wheel, and got Vikings and Twins retro pennants all over the place. Harley Davidson, and
it's the best.
It is. We love it. You wrote a column. You wrote your second installment of the Old Pete.
Yeah.
At that, was it at that booth or that booth?
No, okay. The one on the end there. The Orion series, the Old Pete.
Yeah.
What's crazy about those? And if you haven't read them, go to SiouxFallsLive.com. I love writing that way. It's just fun. But I've had more than 5 people ask me if it was real. Like, did that really happen? If that was a real situation that I was describing. Yeah. I'm just going to leave it there.
Okay.
Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I don't want to give away my secret right now.
No. But it's all in the vein of what Patrick Lalley and Sioux Falls Live do best, cover the issues that mean most to us. And while this is a sports show, on big days like this, we like to talk about our community and a very zesty and interesting governor race, mayor race. And so let's dive in. First of all, I agree with Paul Tenhaken's Facebook video from over the weekend as he winds down his mayoral time. The mayor's race and all the amendments, county commissioners, city council, and all those, for a day-to-day basis, those affect our lives far more than this governor race or senator race or congressman race.
Which is why the legislature made a huge mistake in putting all those elections together.
Yes.
It's ridiculous. And I think that I have not had a Now, for the record, I went to bed at 5:30 this morning.
My God. Wow, it's like the Super Bowl for you.
I haven't had a chance to do the the deep dive into the data, but my bet is that they did not get the kind of bump they thought they were going to get in turnout. And I never really believed that was the reason anyway. But that being said, it was mass chaos. And
really? It was how's the chaos?
There's too many races to get out to the public. I mean, me working hard is not the problem, but the public really not understanding what's going on is the problem. And from Mayor Tenhaken's viewpoint, which I agree with, that these are the important races because that's what I write about for the most part. I honestly, state stuff is really boring to me. City politics and city government is great because it does affect people every day. And it got just, I won't even say overshadowed, just all put into one big bowl and stirred up. And I think it was very confusing for voters. And I don't think it was good for government. And I hope they change it.
Okay. With that being said, more people voted on the governor race than anybody else.
Yeah,
correct?
well, it was because it was statewide.
Yeah, because it was
But
statewide.
the turnout wasn't anything
Right.
outstanding.
But let's get into it. Dusty Johnson on the outside looking in. Holy smokes, I am surprised. He had the biggest name coming into this thing. He had the most experience on a big stage coming into this thing. And kind of felt like but when he announced he was running, even though you have Rhoden's technically an incumbent, he's a very quiet incumbent from the last couple of years. It just felt like this.
Well, he's not, and actually, he's technically not an incumbent. Like he has not been elected.
Yes,
he
was
was
sitting governor.
He was the sitting governor. That's a good. That's a good way to put it, John.
Which obviously people know who the governor is, but tell me if you disagree. It just felt like, Dusty Johnson's in this race. He's probably going to win it. And this is just the primary. There's still a general election to go. That's our public service announcement. The Democrats always have a steep uphill battle. But
here's the thing. Now we're in a different time. So what happened yesterday was very interesting to me.
Let me start with how surprised are you that before we get to Doeden and Rhoden, how surprised are you Dusty wasn't one of the two?
Very.
Yeah.
My prediction was Dusty at 38. I clearly was wrong. To me, what it represents is something of it's clearly a shift in the Republican Party. That's not that obvious, but I think there's more to it than that. There's a malaise in one segment of the Republican Party that is not activated. And that's very interesting to me. When Dusty Johnson doesn't win a gubernatorial, doesn't get to the runoff, which we've never had in a gubernatorial primary, that's pretty shocking given his long history and everything. But that tells you how much the political culture has shifted. And I don't even think it's Trumpian at this point. I think it's different than that. I do think that if I was a Republican in South Dakota, I'd be a little worried about the not the insurgency from the right. I would be worried about the malaise from the base. And I think that vote yesterday represents a malaise from the base.
By malaise from the base, what do you mean?
They're not excited. They weren't excited about any of it, and they just weren't energized to go out and vote. Again, I haven't analyzed the numbers yet, and I will, but I'm very interested to see turnout in some of these places where Dusty should have been strong. And, I'm always interested in the metro. I want to look at the turnout in the metro precincts and see how that fleshed out. All that data is still coming together, but I think that it's going to show that there just wasn't excitement for Dusty. Now, why? I don't know. I mean, he's a great candidate, knows what he's doing, he's experienced, he ticks all the boxes, right? But he lost, and sometimes that's politics. You can't create the best scenario. Oftentimes, candidates wait for the opportunity. That doesn't work that way. There are many candidates who had a view of something in a timeline and a process and plan, and then they got Mike Tyson. They got punched in the face by somebody like Toby Doeden, and it happens. He captured the imagination of those Republicans.
Okay, so what I'm translating here is Dusty is, even though he advertised plenty all over the place how he is aligned with Donald Trump, which plays well in South Dakota, that he's still too moderate to win in this era. Is that correct? Too centrist?
I don't even know if that's it. It's. I think it's a harder thing to explain than that. It's just when people vote, what do they vote on? They don't vote on issues. Some of them do, but most people just vote on gut. And for whatever reason, the Republican gut was not. And you saw a lot of vitriol against Dusty from ordinary Republicans. It goes back to a vote on the wall, which, and I'm not going to go into all that, but they never took him as a true blue Magite, despite what he said. And that's, maybe he's not. You know what I mean? You can't be somebody you're not. And if that's what they wanted, well, maybe that's what they got. I don't know what this runoff between Doeden and Rhoden, other than being a rhyme. I don't know what it's about. Like, what's it about?
Okay, I'll tell you what my translation, casual translation from the sports guy who's not a news guy.
You pay attention.
I do pay attention. I pay attention. Well, like everybody, I pay attention to the god dang ads because I watch sports, and you watch any TV,
YouTube,
and Toby Doeden's the first damn thing, face, voice, anything I've seen every time I watch a YouTube video for the last 2 or 3 months. I swear to God. And yes, I'm mad about that because we all
social media.
We all get mad about it, but it's brilliant. I mean, that's where I was going to go next. Is how much did that work? If we're not voting on the issues and what people actually stand for, and some of these ads tell you what they stand for. I actually thought he had an effective marketing campaign. Advertising himself as a common South Dakotan that looks a lot like a lot of South Dakotans and is one of us and worked hard, worked his way up and fighting for us. It was very vague, like most political ads are, but it was mostly positive, and I'm one of you and vote for me. But I think it felt like because he was everywhere more than the other guys were.
For a long time.
For a long time. The other guys came in, and you couldn't tell who's paying for these ads or who these ads are for. It's just don't vote for this guy, don't vote for that guy. They're fucking evil. Sorry. Bleep. But,
mark that.
Yes. But they came in late as, I get it. You want to spend your money late to make the big run when people start paying attention. But this guy was on everywhere all the time. And that has to be a major part of why he won, right? Because nobody had heard of him before he was everywhere all the time.
Yep, it was very good. I don't know who was his strategist in this, if it was on purpose or just lucky. And it was a lot of money.
Clearly.
When you say, well, what works? I don't know, but let's buy everything, and one of them will.
Yeah.
And that's what they did. They weren't complicated ads. There was nothing about production value there. It was just... It was just frequency. And, it goes back to a lot of lessons from media. When I was in radio, one of the things they would say to you when I wouldn't do the station call letters enough was, remember that by the time you're sick of a song, your grandma's just learning the words, right?
Amen. Yes.
And sometimes when you're in the middle of it, it seems like you're getting overwhelmed. But when it comes to a mass media strategy, it's different. And so that clearly worked for him. There's no way around that. I don't know enough about his infrastructure to know what they were doing in terms of ground game stuff that used to be very important. Maybe isn't anymore.
Ground game as far as planning on where he's visiting people actually in person?
Identifying voters, getting them to polls.
Okay.
I was on a podcast before the election, a statewide political podcast with some other folks, and I agreed with another gentleman, Pat Powers from Brookings, who said, ground game matters. I believe that. I used to believe that. I I don't know that I believe it anymore, because yesterday was a different deal entirely. So what's it all mean, Basil?
Of course.
It means that a lot of things that we believe to be true about politics and why people vote aren't. And not necessarily now, but ever. Because it happens. It happens. Yeah. And that's why we go to the poll. That's why you play the game. And his strategy clearly worked. It's not about being a problem solver. And so now maybe what you're going to see is the Rhoden people, I think, are really guessing here, but really going to push into this idea of Larry Rhoden being the guy who fixes things. I'm a welder. I'm a rancher. I just fix things, whether that's on my ranch or in government. If there's a problem, I'm going to fix it. And
check out the hooks while my DJ revolves it. Ice, ice, baby. Sorry, I couldn't help myself. Sorry.
Well,
if there's a problem,
I think that's the first direct reference between Larry Rhoden and Vanilla Ice, but probably not the last. If I'm being honest,
there's some free campaign advice right there. Who do you? I mean, you're not sure what this all means. Who do you like? Who do you think is it? I mean,
well, I don't know what it's about.
Okay, I know. Okay, and that's fine because I want to move on to the other elections.
That's fine.
But I think it says, in my opinion, it says a lot that nobody won the 35%.
Yeah.
There was no clear champion here.
Yep.
First time ever, right?
Yep.
And but also
the rule's not that old.
Yeah.
I mean,
1985, right?
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah.
Well, I don't even know if it hasn't been throughout the history of the state.
Yeah.
Let's say that. But it's never happened.
Okay, and then
8 weeks, by the way. This is not just a piddling little runoff.
I think this is more. There was no great champion than 4 really strong candidates that were divided up into this 4-way pie. But having said that, okay, now who do you like? Who do you think has the upper hand based off of? Because obviously now you're down to 2 people, so these guys are looking for the other guys' votes that aren't in the election anymore.
I don't know, but I would be very interested to see if Larry Rhoden can raise a bunch of money real fast.
Okay.
Because I think they're going to need it. I'm not saying he can't. There's plenty of sources for that. What I want to see is whether or not Dusty is going to come into Larry's fold and work for him and bring the resources and connections that he has, because that could be a very big deal. It's not just an endorsement, which was fine, but most of those don't mean anything. If Dusty is willing to say, look,
my people will help your people.
My people will help your people, because Larry doesn't have that many people, really. I mean,
doesn't he have?
He's
Gnome's
not
people?
Dusty.
He doesn't have Gnome's people.
No.
Okay.
No, I mean some. Yeah, I mean Ian Fury has done a masterful job here as the, I don't even know if he's officially the campaign manager, but he deserves a lot of credit for pulling this off, and he's former Gnome, but really it's a different class of people, and but Dusty's old school Republican. I mean, not that Larry isn't, but he's part of the old organization. He knows everybody in the organization. He knows how things work better than anybody. Will he come into Larry Rhoden's camp and say, let's patch up our differences and move forward?
Interesting.
Maybe. I don't know.
Will one last question. Will the association with Christy Gnome help or hurt Larry Rhoden? Will it be something that Toby Doeden will want to avoid or attack?
Well, if you're Toby Doeden, you always attack.
But will you attack the angle of, hey, I mean...
Well, if I were going to do it, if you're asking me...
Being hitched to Christy Gnome now isn't as cool as it was 2 or 3 years ago.
No, there's plenty of stuff to bring up. If I were advising the Toby Doeden campaign, which I'm not, I would say go after the corruption, because that's what people really hate. Is there's this idea of government not being transparent and doing things behind their back, which is true. But the Republican Party didn't used to care about that. And they maybe should have. And I've got examples, and we don't need to go into them. But just Freedom Works here and all the work I did there. Open government is, you can't call it open government or people don't care. But if I'm Toby Doeden, I'm going after Rhoden as the guy who was sitting in the office when all the crap went down.
Which crap again?
Corey Lewandowski, the Freedom Works here, Ben Yoho, all these guys who eventually were tied up with a huge scandal on the national level with her campaign as DHS secretary. You can connect those dots. Anybody can go do it. Go read my stories. But
SiouxFallsLive.com.
SiouxFallsLive.com. If I'm them, I'm doing that. You know, I don't know. You can call Larry Rhoden a career politician. Sure, he's been in the legislature, blah 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 blah. But he's still a rancher and a welder and all that. But you can say, where were you? Where were you when this happened? Where were you when this contract got signed to give the Freedom Works Here contract to this Ohio company on a clearly sketchy bid with somebody else's creative?
Yeah.
Where were you? That's what I'm doing. But now if I'm Larry, let's flip that on its head.
Yeah.
Which is, what's the deal with, where'd you get all this money?
Yeah.
Let's look at those businesses, right? And the question that Jonathan Ellis asked during our debate, you took $1.2 million in PPP money and yet you're anti-government. And you didn't own that company before you took that money. You know, I mean, the timeline, like, what's going on here? Who are you? You just showed up one day. Where do you talk about career politicians? What about, oligarchs? And, I don't know. That's it. If you're doing this sort of messaging and trying to define your opponent, that's what you do.
So do you think the big fella from the White House is going to come in to endorse either guy?
Does he really care who's the governor of South Dakota? I don't think so. Now, Toby Doeden, the other masterful thing he did was connect himself to people who didn't necessarily endorse him. So there was a big controversy late in the campaign, which most normal people don't care about, which is Doeden using likenesses of other, like Marty Jackley and Trump, saying, I'm the next Trump. I'm South Dakota's Trump. Well, I never heard Trump say that. You know what I mean? So he's associating himself with people like Marty Jackley, who's very popular in the Republican Party, to sort of imply that we're all in this, and they're not.
Yeah.
So that was a masterstroke.
Speaking of Jackley, he won the Republican
by a mile. We don't even need to talk about that.
We don't.
That was not a credible race.
No, I was going to say we don't need to talk about that, and maybe we can closer to November. Same thing with Rounds in the Senate.
Well, Rounds, McNeil, that gentleman who ran against Rounds, I think is a very interesting cat, and I'd love to hear more about him. Just what I know, I think I like him. I just want to, not like him personally, I've never met the man, but I want to learn more about him because I think he's got some new perspective. That's it. Now, he lost famously to Rounds, and everybody knew he would, but, what's next, right?
Yeah, see if he pops up again.
Yep.
All right, let's get to mayor.
Thank God.
Yeah, I know that's what you wanted to start with, but I couldn't stop scratching the mosquito bite.
You're just like everybody else.
I know.
All I've been doing today is getting stopped by people. Well, after I got up, which was not early.
Yeah, sure. I bet.
People just want to talk about it, and it's because it's fun. It's good
front
stuff.
and center.
Yes. So go ahead.
So the mayoral race. I'm not surprised by Christine Erickson. She got the huge $100,000 endorsement from a bunch of, you could tell
Titans of industry. It's Dana Dykhouse.
Yeah.
A little bit from $5,000 from T. Denny.
Yeah.
Chip Carlson, who's the third generation owner of Henry Carlson Construction. There's people with someone with generational money, someone with new money. Matt Paulson's in there.
She had been a city councilman. I'm not surprised about Christine, and I think she has a good personality for this, and so that part didn't surprise me. Jamie Smith, maybe a little. The man did run for governor, and up until Election Day, he was supposedly close to neck and neck with Christie, and then he
well,
wasn't.
Yeah, I don't know if it was neck and neck, but
he had
people the sort of popular thinking in the last few weeks was that Jamie was going to make the runoff. He had good money, so he was able to get his message out late. You know, he's done everything. People know who he is.
So I mean, is this name recognition when it comes down to it?
Partly. And organization. Like he also has run campaigns in the city of Sioux Falls.
Yeah.
All right. So is Greg Jamison.
Greg.
But there's it's a different constituency, right? So it's not surprising to me that Jamie made the runoff.
Okay. So you're not surprised by these are the two.
Well, no, it's not shocking. It could have been. I could have made a case for any of them, but.
Yeah, I was going to say, if there's one that you're most surprised didn't make the runoff that didn't, who would it be? Who?
No, that's it. I mean,
he has to.
If it would have been anything else, I would have been a lot more surprised. If Christine would have gotten 50, I'd have been surprised by that. I go back to like the history of the Sioux Falls politics, right? Has always been this. There's always been this sort of country club and the working man vibe, right? And it changes. I mean, it's not the same as it was when Noby ran in 74 or whatever it was. But that when Noby won back then, he had beaten kind of an establishment businessman kind of guy because he was young and he was different. Well, that kind of has played out over and over, and that's what we're seeing again this time. It's not Republican-Democrat, which she's a Republican, he's a Democrat. These are not partisan races.
But do you think most people know that she's a Republican and he's a Democrat and will vote accordingly?
Some, but mostly it's because yes, Democrats are more likely to support Smith. Republicans are more likely to support Christine, but there's a lot of crossover because it is a municipal election. The party politics don't play here. Mm-hmm. Like the themes don't play, the issues don't play. It's just that identification of he ran against Christie, I like him. He's my legislator, I like him. He came to my door, I like him. Or Christine, she's my legislator. I've known her, you know, she's been around a long time. I know, you know, or she was the, you know, working for the Auto Dealers and Truckers Association as a lobbyist, but there's a lot of connections there in business, obviously. Like, there are just a lot of more nuances in the way people vote in a municipal election than party. It's not on the ballot.
I know.
So there's not a knee jerk on that. You at least have to know if they are Republican or Democrat, because it's not going to be in front of you.
Yeah.
So if that's how you vote, that's how you vote.
Do you mean to tell me some people go to the ballot box and they don't know a damn thing about any of these candidates?
Don't you remember?
They just vote for the R or the D? Are you telling me there are people who actually do that?
John, I'm a man of an age that remembers the voting booth, the actual with the levers.
Yes.
And you could go in there and just pull R or just pull D.
Yeah.
And walk out. And it just went.
Yes.
Covered you.
I know. That being facetious.
I know.
Of course, that's the way people do it. Not everybody.
Sometimes I don't. That's not as common.
But you're right. In the mayoral election, if people are voting and weren't paying attention and they go, they kind of get stymied on that one because they don't see the R or the D.
I like Jamie, or I like Christine. I saw her. Yeah. I heard her talk once, and I liked her. That's it.
What do these two people stand for? What are their differences?
I think they're not in the things that they have said. Like their public pronouncements, there's not that much difference. I mean, I would say Christine is more aggressive about, not claiming responsibility, but aligning herself with certain ideals about public safety and business-friendly community. But Jamie's business-friendly, but you'll hear him put that in different context, which is, Jamie will say, I'm a mayor for everybody, nobody left behind, kind of working man vibe, right? and not that
most of his
Christine
life as a teacher, right?
Teacher, and then not most, but then and a realtor, and some, he sold medical equipment for a while. He's just had a job. He's a North End guy. Christine is not from, she wasn't born with a silver spoon in her mouth. People sometimes think that because her brother is a Hall of Fame kicker, Adam Vinatieri, that she's got, there's just money coming out her ears. Well, she's not that person. She's not an uber wealthy business titan.
I mean, did she go to Rapid City Central or Rapid City Stevens?
I know I think it's Stevens. I can't remember.
There we go. There's the move.
But she's from Rapid.
I'm just kidding. I know Christine. I'm just kidding, Christine.
She always says, and this is odd to me, when I've seen her in public in the debate, she will say, I wasn't born here, but, because Jamie always says, I was born here. I'm from Sioux Falls, for Sioux Falls. That doesn't mean what it used to mean, but it still means something. And I don't know if she's a little too cognizant of that. Why would you even bring it up?
Interesting. Yeah.
It's just Rapid. It's not, Seattle, for the love of God.
Hey, when they, I noticed that's, live TV last night, she mentioned public safety,
And that's going to be a big theme.
Well, why? I mean, because I know that sounds like a really dumb question. Everybody wants to be safe. The public, we all this. I don't know about you. I've lived here for over a decade now. You've lived here most of your life. This has always felt like a relatively safe place to live.
It's a very safe place to live.
And I know we want to keep it that way, and it's important. And it doesn't just happen. It takes a lot of hard work, but it's not a problem, is it, for most people? So why
I think
is
you're going
to
hear a lot about it.
Because she said we're going to make some change. What changes need to be made about public safety? What is she talking about?
There are no changes that need to be made. But that's just me. I spend a lot of time talking about public safety issues with people that do it on the ground, right?
Okay.
Or involved with it. And this city is very safe. Our crime rate is going down despite what people think. But I go back to this, which is people are simple, okay? They are not that complicated. They want three things. I've said it on this program before.
Do it again, baby.
They want their street to be safe. They want their kid to have a good teacher. And they want something to do with their family in their free time. Period. If you can remember those, now every issue doesn't fit in that, but if you can remember those three things and focus on those things, then you can be successful. Now, that doesn't mean, I think if you start claiming that Sioux Falls is a crime-ridden cesspool, that's not credible. Because most people know that their street is safe.
But we're talking about platforms, and her number one thing is public safety. Okay.
Well, because everybody wants to be safe.
I get it.
But how do you put? The question is, how do you use that as a differentiator, right?
Yeah.
Can she? I mean, I moderated the public safety debate with the mayoral candidates, which I got a very nasty email about the other day. Like, how come you can't bid? Anyway, doesn't matter. And nobody sits up there and says, I'm not for public safety.
Exactly.
Right? So, okay, you're for public safety. Jamie's for public safety. No, you think he wants, roving gangs? No. But what does that mean exactly? And you need to be able to not just say that, but then have it be some sort of differentiator between you and the person sitting next to you. And that's what I'm waiting to see. There are some things that she could do. I don't know if she's going to do them.
Okay.
We will see.
Any other issues that should decide this mayoral campaign on how they feel about one way or the other?
Well,
that could either
growth. It's going to be, that's part of it. This idea we're growing too fast, we're growing too much. What do we do about that? Because paying for it is expensive, and we all pay for it. And how do we manage the growth in the future that is not mortgaging? Because what we have been doing for the past decades is mortgaging our growth. Yeah. It costs a lot of money to not just to build the streets, but then to keep them up, right? And to make sure that there are police out there. If you want to talk about public safety, it's not so much do we have enough cops, it's how is our city built in such a way that we don't need twice as many cops, or those kinds of things. Now that can get very nerdy very fast,
Yes.
but what it shows up as is there's too many people here, too many people coming. Well, as Ted Atkins has always said, you can't keep them out.
Yeah.
You can't shut the door, and it's not. You don't want that. You want growth and development. It's good for business, it's good for jobs, it's good for workers, good for families. But what does it look like, and how do we pay for it? That is a pretty nuanced question, but it will come up. Recreation, like quality of life issues, indoor recreation centers, pools, parks, downtown is part of the conversation. There's this concept out there that people think we spend all this money on downtown for a select few people. It's not true, but it comes up. And how do you have that?
People.
Yeah, well, the richies, the richers. It's not. It's just. It's not. And also the fact of the matter is that the revenue gained from property taxes from downtown properties is far and away higher per square foot than any other place in the city by miles. We actually get less. Big lawned suburban development provides less return on investment than does downtown development. But see, again, these are complicated issues.
Right.
How do you communicate those things about growth? There's too many people here. Now, for me, I think there's a huge conversation to be had about the sort of de facto segregation of our community based on economic circumstances. We're not going to talk about that here. I don't know that you can make that work in a mayoral campaign, but it's certainly something people need to talk about. It goes back to economics and growth, and how do you define that?
Downtown is for the richy riches. They don't go to the Orion Pub if that's
Have they seen
that's
this
the
joint?
perception. I mean,
Yeah,
Cordell says
it's a very affordable place to live.
Yes.
And
I mean, there's a couple bars and a couple restaurants that you're going to spend a lot of money to enjoy yourself there. But like there's a couple free public parks down there that are big and brand new right down there by the falls. The falls is free to go to last time I checked.
Right. And the thing about it is a lot of this stuff is economic stress is put up on people, and they're looking for somebody to blame. That doesn't have anything to do with the city.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so
Fair.
that happens.
Okay, last night, finishing off, of course, we front-loaded this with the big stuff, the governor and the mayor. But anything that was striking to you about amendments? City council.
Oh, city council is wild. Amendments, I sat through all those meetings. I didn't find anything in there that was
what was wild about
objectionable.
city council results?
Well, there's 4 seats up, 4 new councilors, which is half the council. We're getting a new mayor and 4 new councilors. The city, this is potentially a very big change. Well, you've got only one of those races was decided yesterday. Rich McCorris was reelected. There are only 2 people in his race. He's in. The other 3 all have runoffs. So we're going to have on the ballot in 3 weeks the mayor and then 2 at-large, or 1 at-large district and then 2 districts. So if you live in Central or Southeast. But the fact that those all went to runoffs, there were just a lot of candidates. And in the past cycle, that wasn't the case. Jennifer Seghetti, who's on the council now, didn't have an election. She was the only person to file. So clearly that has changed. Also, a lot of new faces, very energetic people. I think the Central District is fascinating. It'll be Zach DeBoer against Zach Zakawi. That's an amazing race. Zach Zakawi, who is a child of immigrants. Actually, he was born in East Africa, came here as a child, but product of the public school system, became a nurse, started a nonprofit. He is just an interesting guy. And Zach DeBoer those 2 will face each other. Zach was almost the Central District Councilor, and 8 years ago he got beat by Kurt Sale by less than 150 votes. So he's back. Wow. Those 2, that's a very interesting race. Both bright guys and going to be great. In the Southeast, I'm going to mess up her name. I I highly underestimated her, and she Pankinen. There was
that's it.
Pankinen, and she's going to be running against Mike Crane. I think Mike Crane was sort of the presumed winner in that, and she got a lot more votes than he did. So they'll face off against each other, and that will be a very interesting race. Mike Crane's a guy who's just been around forever. He's on the school board for a long time, so he's old Sioux Falls, but he hasn't been involved publicly for a while. So your persona fades pretty fast, and there's a lot of new people here, especially in the southeast. I mean,
no kidding.
So that'll be very interesting to watch. And then in the at-large, Vince Don, who is also the child of immigrants, Vietnamese family, and he's running against James Oppenheimer, who's not a child of immigrants. He actually is an immigrant from England. So, but he's been involved in nonprofit management for a while. He runs the YMCA. So you've got these three different races. All these people, all six of those people are great candidates, right? So and then the mayor's race. I think that these next 3 weeks are just going to be fascinating to watch, because there is a lot that could change in terms of the dynamics of the council and what that means for our city in terms of growth, but also our relationship with state government.
And what's a specific glimpse? I've got one that I used to cover back when I was in news. What's an example of why who your city councilors are is so important?
Well, they vote on the budget, first of all, but they decide things like there's all this outrage about the data center, right?
How about the slaughterhouse a couple of years ago?
The slaughterhouse, that went on the public ballot in terms of Holstone.
Yes,
but the reason, and Christine Erickson, let's remember, was involved in that ballot initiative on the side of Holstone Foods, which wanted to build a new plant, and they won. If that would not have won, the Smithfield plant that we may have eventually on the south side of town could not have been built. Yeah. So these things matter in the long-term health and well-being of the community. Not every rezone is a controversy, but rezoning for a data center is a big decision. Rezoning for economic TIFs, right, which get massively misunderstood, but it's a big deal. It's a decision by the city that they're going to support this venture in this way. They could all get shot down. I mean, we could, it's possible. I don't see it with the people that are involved here, but what if you suddenly had a very anti-growth council? We're not going to expand. We're not going to put in new infrastructure. We're not going to annex land. We're not going to make agreements with our neighbors, right? That could be very problematic. But historically, this community has elected people who said, look, we want this place to grow, we want it to be healthy, and we want it to continue to be a great place to live. Then the discussion happens about how you do that, and that's the city council.
Good place to end. There we go. You didn't have a beer the whole time, but I finished mine. Oh, it's right there. Okay. And I finished mine, so we need another beer.
Yeah, we do. We're going to finish this conversation in a big way. No, but quietly, because it's Orion.
Well, yeah.
No politics. This isn't even political discussion. This is just an analysis.
So we're talking about life. We're talking about life in the best little city in America. By the way, where'd you come up with that nickname?
It was a long time ago, and I wrote a column about it once, and I probably should do it again. It's not necessarily a term of endearment. It's based on, it started in 1991 when Money Magazine.
I'm so sorry, Cordell.
Started that, and someday we'll tell the story. That's all you need to know.
There you go. Okay, to be continued. For Patrick Lalley, video producer Cordell Wright, 3 weeks away. What's the exact date for people to vote?
June 23rd.
Do a little homework. Don't just show up there and vote on the city's future. Cheers.
You need anything else, John?
No, I think I'm good, Greg. I think I'm going to tap out.
All right. Have a good night.